Hey everyone, it's been a busy few months for me. We released the State of Adventures book. Thank you to everyone who's bought it, purchased it, given it as a gift, reviewed it. Incredible. I thought writing the book would be the hard part, but I had no idea how much work it would be to promote and help sell it. So I've been doing all these podcasts, and I don't feel old, but that process of being asked all these questions about the early days of the diaries, what our community was like back then, has made me realize that I've been doing this for a hot minute. And it made me think back to the question I used to get asked all the time from editors or from people I would run into like through business and through work. And I would sort of tell them what I do. I covered this. I really believe in these sports, and I think there's something really special about people, spending their lives outdoors. And they would invariably ask me, why? Why would somebody want to hike up a mountain and then ski down it? Why would somebody want to walk the length of the Appalachian Trail? And I got asked it so much, I sort of started to formulate this thesis about why that was, so I could have a quick answer. And I'd explain to them that 98% of the time, spending time in the natural landscape, moving through these places, is just playing fun, playing old type 1 fun, And I'd say, but there's a lot of things in this world that are fun that don't elicit the same response, right? Like water slides. They're super fun. We've all met somebody that has changed their life because of their curiosity about what they can do in the outdoors, what they can do in the mountains, what they can do in this community. We've met those people. I've never met that person for the water slide. And I would explain, it's like, yeah, it's fun 98% of the time, but there's like another little bit, that other 2%. And in that 2%, we walk into the natural world and we emerge out of the mountains or the deserts or the ocean or rivers. We come back a slightly different person. We grow, sometimes through luck or chance or even bad luck. Sometimes we put ourselves in spots where we take a chance, surprise ourselves, and carry a bit of that boldness, confidence back into our regular day-to-day lives. And sometimes we just sort of arrive open to that growth, and the time outside gives us the space to walk through the door we've opened for ourselves. On a level, that is what has happened to today's guest, Win Wiley, better known as Pattie Gonia. Win went out on a backpacking trip with an inkling of an idea, a set of boots packed at the bottom of a bag, and emerged, not fully realized, but walking a new path. Today, if you scan Patagonia's feed, you find joy, you find mountains, art, creativity, community. She might be making music with famed cellist Yo-Yo Ma, raising hundreds of thousands of dollars for charity, headlining pride festivals, gravel biking, or just disappearing to unplug in the mountains. And if you look through that feed, most of the time, it looks fun. Maybe even 98% of the time, it looks fun. But it's what Win and Pattie have done with that other 2%, the hard parts of their experience that truly makes it profound. I'm Fitz Cahall, and you're listening to the Dirtbag Diaries. All right, I'm going to dive in.
Oh my gosh, I love diving in.
So this year, I've been having a growth year in general, which is great.
I love that.
And I was thinking back through my own creative path over the last 2 decades and really through my entire life, because I think that's not something I just magically got a badge for or something like that, where you're like, you're a creative now. And I was thinking about like things I've learned and takeaways from my experiences doing this. And one of them is always ask what something could become. Challenge yourself to imagine an irrationally high ceiling and then think through the path that it would take to get there. because I think you owe that to the endeavor. I know that sort of sounds strange because you're like, just be irrationally confident, which is not maybe my predisposition, but I felt like that's a really good thing to think through. And watching your last few years, and particularly your last year, you've recorded and released an anthem for climate change with legendary cellist Yo-Yo Ma and Tiny Desk concert winner Quinn Christopherson, Time Magazine, future generation leader. You're selling out 1,000-person venues. You are giving the vice president somewhat awkward high fives. Have you hit your irrationally high ceiling?
Oh, no. We're just beginning. But I think a lot about like ecosystems, and I think that it's definitely been a big year of growth in this ecosystem. And I think growth isn't always good. I think it's really important to grow healthily. And I feel like we've gotten to grow healthily, thank goodness. But I think growth from the outside, it always looks bright and shiny, of course. And I think there's so much of this like growth on the back end of, are you still giving yourself what you need? Are you still giving your team what they need? And I think I've learned a lot about that this year too, because it's been these career highlights, but it's also in a weird way been this like such beautiful growth for our team on the back end. And for me as a person, and I feel more true to who I am than ever. And that's the growth that doesn't necessarily always get seen or get the likes, but it's been weird to live a year where it's been like so much, public success and also, personal success of like, I'm taking more breaks than I ever have before, where it feels really good, but not Instagramming those. Yeah, it's been a big year. And as Natasha Bedingfield says, the rest is still unwritten. So we'll see what the future holds.
That was my next question is I think as the world has become more accustomed to using social media as a tool versus just like a complete stream of consciousness, there is the world that we see, the manicured side, the successes. And then there's also like that deeper personal understanding of what success is too.
Yeah.
On that front, what are some of those things? I'm curious, what has been filling you up outside of what's so publicly facing and forward?
Totally. That's a great question. I feel like the things that always fill me up are time with my people. I have a really big chosen family. And like as a queer person, chosen family is very important to me. I feel like for like a lot of outdoor enthusiasts, your chosen family or the people you share the trail with are our family. And the time with them feels incredibly important and special and feels like a win. And I feel very lucky to get to do work with people that I love and trust and consider chosen family. But also I live in Bend, Oregon. And so it's been really good to spend time in Bend, especially this winter, and just take time off to ski and to hang out. And with my cats, I am just like so basic, just like hanging out with my cats and eating too much pizza. But here I am. Yeah, I feel like balance is a complete myth and lie, but I feel like I've gotten to live more in my truth this year than ever before. And I think I put a lot of work in to get here. In my personal life, especially to make my personal life healthy, to find a balance between, my masculinity and my femininity, and my identity as like a non-binary person, and trying to just be me. Yeah, give myself joy with my career and give myself joy as a human being as well. It's felt really good to see that pay off.
Yeah.
It's worth it.
Yeah. And you said you're taking more time off. Like, I think when you've set a vision out into the world and then all of a sudden it takes off, it's like having a giant dog on a leash and being pulled by it. Was there a period in your career as Pattie Gonia became a sensation where it felt like you were almost being drug along?
I appreciate that metaphor. Pattie happened by complete accident. I was never planning on this happening ever. But I think it's crazy 5 years later now to like look at how like every experience you have like prepares you for your life, and you can never see it coming, and then it comes and you're like, well, duh. But I think there are so many like skills and pieces of me that ended up like making Pattie happen. But I mean, definitely like when Pattie was born, I saw the world give me an opportunity to do something different and to just say what if. And it's been like daily choosing that what if and feeling batshit crazy, but knowing that I have to do this because there's just no other way I can live my life. And it has not always been pretty. That dog has like definitely pulled on the leash a lot, but I've really learned to just trust myself. And I think that dog for a while might have felt like a force that felt uncomfortable. But I know now that like it's so important to be uncomfortable. It's so important to challenge yourself. Like truly, I think identity, self-growth is just like a muscle we have to train. And I definitely had to get in the gym when Pattie was born to figure out what I wanted to have this be, but also what I wanted my personal life to be. Because along with Pattie and this drag persona being born, I was also leaving my hometown behind because people in my hometown were just no longer going to be friends with me if I was going to do drag and be out and gay and queer and proud of who I was. Mm-hmm. So there was a giant shift happening in my personal life as well. And I feel really grateful to have like found soil that feels like it can support my growth. I think for so long in my life, as a queer person or just as a human being, like I faulted myself for not growing. Like I was like, I could see my potential, but I wasn't like sprouting new leaves. And then I realized I was just planted in some toxic soil and I had to repot myself, replant myself in soil that supported my growth. And when that happened, then now you're seeing all the blossoms happen. And
talk to me about that, because you said that in a way, Pattie was both sort of an accident, but also makes perfect sense looking back in hindsight. So tell me about how that came to be.
Well, where do you want to begin? There's so much to share. For as long as I can remember, I loved being outdoors, and especially like as a little queer kid, the outdoors were my safe space and were a place where I felt like I could be me. I would like just jump off this swing set and perform musicals for an audience of nobody. Now, literally, I'm doing that same thing just with an audience in front of me. So, I mean, that's, you not seeing that your life is a setup for your life, but there you go. But how Pattie happened for me was, as all good things, like out of a quarter life crisis. I was like 25. I had lived a really successful career as a photographer, and I was feeling really burnt out in that, and also really at this crux of I was starting to realize that most all of my clients were this Republican money that never actually would ever vote for my equal rights a day in my life. Mm-hmm. And then also, I was like traveling to all these places and like had all this success as a photographer, but it was also just like so soul-sucking and draining and just like physically, mentally, emotionally draining. And I knew I needed to change. And I was out as a gay man, but in a lot of ways when I came out, like in college, like at the age of 20, like I felt like I like went further back into the closet in a lot of ways. When I came out, I was like, hey, I'm out, I'm gay, but also I'm going to be the good gay person. I'm going to be the socially accepted gay person. I'm going to be the gay person that's not going to paint their fingernails, that's like not going to do drag or challenge the system, or that's going to like need new friends or do anything that like my conservative quote unquote friends at the time looked down upon. So literally I like internalized that homophobia so hard that I changed my voice to be lower, never wore bright colors. Like I was, this very like, yeah, I'm gay, but like I'm a good gay person. And I think a lot of queer people can relate to that, still trying to be conditioned to be that accepted queer person. We get told at the time from a lot of people in our lives when we come out at first, like, hey, we love you, but don't do this. Do this instead. You don't need to X, Y, Z. And I think what I've learned now is that conditional love is not love. It's like a weird form of hate. Love shouldn't have conditions. So yeah, I think I was really due for like another coming out. No matter who you are, whether it's gay or straight or anything in between, everyone has a closet to come out of. Really what closets are is oftentimes knowing that we need to step out into this world and just be who we are or accept ourselves, or maybe it's a really tough conversation with a best friend, or maybe it's ending a relationship that we know we have to end, or maybe it's truly moving and repotting yourself like I talked about. And those things take bravery, and I think those things are coming out. And at the other side of that is joy you can't even imagine, but it feels so fucking scary to be on this trapeze bar and be like, I know that other one's over there, but am I really gonna like take that leap of faith and be in the middle of the air and not know if I'm gonna reach it? Like that feels scary as fuck. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes like I have been so afraid that I haven't done that, but every time I have done that, like I have gotten to that other bar. So I should know better, but that limbo felt very large at the time of Pattie's birth. And I feel like now I know that like that trapeze bar is on the other side. I feel like I've gotten a hold of it with my climbing gloves with my bedazzled nails on them,
My memory of the sort of Patagonia origin story is that you went out on a backpacking trip and brought a set of ridiculously heavy boots, and then it came back with you. The same way that a lot of people have life-changing moments in nature when they're stepping outside of their sort of regular world and they're challenging themselves. There's something really concrete and specific about what happened to you, you know, of realizing like, oh, I need to move.
Yeah.
I need to change. The people I thought were my friends maybe aren't really my friends. So what did it actually look like?
Yeah. Okay. I can give you kind of the play-by-play. So yeah, at the time I was a photographer, and I always went to this conference called Field Trip. That was like one of the first actually accepting spaces that I was ever a part of in California. And they had this dance party called Lasers and Blazers. And the theme of the dance party is just to come as whatever you want to be. And so I like went with a friend in LA and bought a pair of 6-inch high heel boots and went to that party in drag for the first time as not Pattie, but Ginger Snap, because redhead photographer. Here we are. But went as Ginger Snap, and it was so fascinating because I felt so uncomfortable seeing so much of the femininity that I'd like left behind in my life, like right there staring back at me in my face. In the mirror, I mean, drag is uncomfortable. Like, it's so stupid. Like, it's more painful than climbing, I think. It's a very weird thing, but yet it felt so right. It felt so wrong. It felt so right. There's the song lyric in there, but it just felt like such a powerful and important experience. People didn't even recognize me that night. And it was like very surreal. It's very empowering. Photos eventually made their way to the internet because shocker, it was a photography conference. So there's 400 cameras there. It was ridiculous. People in my hometown, you know, saw these photos and were like, oh, well, Win is trans now. Or, you know, Win is too gay for us now. Or like, this is ridiculous. And yeah, I saw people that I thought were going to be in my life for forever just fall out of my life. And, you know, the silence was deafening. It was just like people that I honestly look back at now and see that like their hate or their silence or them removing their friendship is really, you know, it's about themselves. It's about the love that they're not willing to give themselves, the acceptance that they're not willing to give themselves. And I want like liberation for them too. I want like acceptance for them too. But I don't know if they'll ever give themselves that. It was a really sad and like lonely summer. I remember like coming back from that photography conference and just being like, yeah, this sucks. This is too painful. Like, why would I ever do drag again? I like lost so much. So I just like threw these pair of boots in my closet. And, you know, I had plans to go on this backpacking trip up on the Continental Divide Trail in Colorado with a few of my best friends. When I was packing for the backpacking trip, I like went to go grab my backpack from my closet and saw those boots there. And I was like, what if? And so I put them in my backpack. It's like the stupidest 5 pounds of unnecessary weight and like clutter. But I like hid them in the bottom of my backpack, and like we went on this backpacking trip. And at the summit of that Continental Divide Trail, when we topped it, I just decided to whip these boots out. And like, you know, these friends were like my real best friends. They love me. And I decided to put these boots on and like, you know, did the thing, took some photos, took some videos, and yeah, really strutted on this trail. And it also felt so right. Because I think growing up queer, I was told forever that I was wrong, that I was unnatural. And so this love that I had for nature as a kid became this thing that was so, like I was so separated from nature, like in middle school and high school and even into college. And to be out there and to be so overtly queer and to like feel so queer felt like me realizing or starting to realize that queerness was nothing but natural. And now like 5 years later, I'm friends with, you know, hundreds of biologists, scientists, people studying queerness in nature, and queerness is nothing but natural. Nature knows no binaries, no boundaries. Mycelium have literally 10,000 different sexual variations of actual sexes they're born with. Like nature is so queer. And so now I know when I like see queerness in nature, I can see it more in myself, and that feels important. And I think also for my whole life too, growing up in like Boy Scouts and like with sports and being told that, you know, I had to be like masculine to do outdoorsy things. It felt so important to like reclaim the feminine in nature. So we are in Mother Nature's house. Nature is incredibly feminine. And, you know, there was just so much like media that I got indoctrinated by of just that the outdoors were like not a place for queer people, weren't a place for sensitivity or art or creativity or femininity in any way. And I didn't know it at the time, but like I really needed that. I really needed to remember that. And I still need to remind myself of that all the time. Coming home from that backpacking trip, like this video went viral and like that's the story people know, but also like I got hundreds of messages from queer people like across the world that were queer and were in really remote places doing incredible field work or science or research, or like were park rangers. And a few of those people were Yosemite National Park rangers who were like, hey, we've never had a pride here. Like, what if we threw a pride here? And now, 5 years later, we just threw pride for a couple hundred, not just visitors to the park, but park employees that work in the park. And so seeing queer people embrace outdoor culture and jobs in the outdoors and really taking that space feels really beautiful. And I think it's only happening more and more and more. That feels like something I'm really proud of. But nothing that I've done alone. It like takes community. It's like everything I've done takes a village. But I feel very grateful to get to be a little MC to that village.
Yeah. I remember my grandfather passed away 2 years ago, 101 years old. And it was like right at the last few days, he was coming back to moments when he like was climbing Mount Whitney 50 years earlier, just like little shards of memory. And I guess like that moment, strutting on a trail, literally the trail, the Continental Divide Trail, is that burned into your memory?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I remember ridiculous things too that like no one knows about filming those clips. Like my kid's 2-year-old at the time was literally actively taking a shit on the trail next to me, strutting while we're recording this video because they like really had to go to the bathroom. So like there's just all sorts of little just hilarious moments, or like, the moment right after like we filmed this video, this hail/rainstorm like came and just completely like washed us off the top of the mountain. So we like just got it in the nick of time. So yeah, it was really beautiful. And I just really remember how much I needed that friendship, and that group of friends especially got me into backpacking. I think that something we don't talk enough about in like the outdoors is how important it is to be that friend, to invite someone outdoors for the first time. Because like you said, it is so powerful. The worst thing that happens is just your friend gets some good Instagram photos out of it. But like at its best, like it changes lives. And it's really hard when you don't have access to learn these skills, to know how to backpack, to know these things. So having friends like I had that like taught me these things, and were really like, expert like navigators at the time. Like I would have never like gone into the Never Summer Range. Like that's really remote back there, like behind Rocky Mountain National Park. But it was so beautiful and I felt so safe and comfortable. And I just like want us to like give each other that gift, and it's free 99, baby. And I think that like every single person in the outdoors knows the power of that. But I just want us to keep on inviting people outdoors. I mean, we talk a lot about diversifying the outdoors, but I think the most accessible step we can all do is just to like invite a friend, like invite someone who maybe doesn't look like you, who maybe wasn't raised with the same skills, to go out and like experience your favorite thing, whether that's climbing, hiking, backpacking, going for a stroll in a city park, whatever.
Yeah. It sounds like you've always been a creative person, from singing musicals to an audience of none, to photography, to like music, creativity, art, and drag, like all those things, right? And there is a side, not for all creatives, but creatives want audience. And so I'm curious, would that moment on the Continental Divide Trail have as much power to you had it not gone viral? Or would it still have just been a light bulb moment of being like, I just actually like this and I don't care if I have an audience?
That is such a good question, and no one has asked me that. And I'd love to talk about that.
Let's talk about it.
Creativity, like at its root for me, has always been so essential to my life, especially as a queer person, because growing up in the Midwest, in a place that like didn't accept me, didn't love me for who I was.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Nebraska, in Lincoln, Nebraska. But growing up there, my creativity was my way out, always. Not just out of state eventually, but was my way out of my circumstances, was my way to rewrite my story, not as the gay kid, but as the photographer or the successful academic kid. And a really common experience for queer people, I feel like especially queer men, is that like our trauma response is overachievement. And my overachievement is deeply rooted with my creativity because it's my way to survive. It's my way to get out. It's my way to thrive. And so I kind of don't know life any differently. And last year I was working with a therapist to really like unpick like my creativity from my overachievement and trying to look at what I wanted to build and do. And I think I've also like really learned now that, that overachievement in me or that creativity, I used to view it not as a bad thing, but just as like, is this genuine or is this for me? And I think what I've really like learned is that it's for me via way of others. Like how I also learned to connect with this world is to share. And I think that like the way that I share and can communicate is through art and is through doing what I do. So I've learned not to like critique it too much or be like, oh, well, is it for you? Is it for others? It's like, no, it's just like how I am. I knew early on with Pattie that I wanted it to be for more than just me, but I love it. And like Pattie is still a thing for me. So it ebbs and flows, but I think that I can't separate it now. It is what it is. But I think that like, I think anyone that really knows me on a personal level knows that I am like deeply motivated by a call and response. So like whether like I am being a part of that response or whether I'm being a part of that call, like I just love that with the world. And so Pattie is my call and response. And so I definitely do Pattie for other people. And I'm learning like more and more to do it for me too. I think in that first moment, to be really honest with you, if I wouldn't have seen that impact, I don't think I would have known how important it could be for me, If I didn't have other people like reflecting a mirror of like, hey, like this is you, like chase this.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would have done it. So that's the power and beauty of friends in your life and people that see you and love you.
Yeah. It's funny because like if you took away adjectives or like the specifics of it, I would give the exact same response about what it felt like to start the diaries.
Yeah.
As like, in a way I did it for myself, but then it was the feedback and it was that conversation with the rest of the world that was like, I didn't know what it would become, but I felt the same way as I knew that my life had changed. I didn't know how, I didn't know what it would be, but to me it was like, cool, that door opened and clearly I'm running through it.
Totally. Yeah. And I think you can always run through a door too and realize it's not the right door for you and you can run the other way out, I think we often think if we do take that leap that like we have to go do that. What I wish I would have known then that I know now is like you can always like run backwards as well.
Yeah.
You can go down the trail and be like, not for me, and run back. But I think it's better to go and to know than to not go and not know at all.
I want to jump back. You as a kid, Lincoln, Nebraska. On one hand, it sounded like you actually did have incredible access to nature, whether that came in, it sounds like maybe in the form of a backyard or garden or something like that. Like, how were you interacting with the natural world as a kid?
Yeah, I think the Midwest is like so misunderstood and is so like underrated. And it's, it's the flyover me states. It's like the places that everyone forgets, but it is so fucking beautiful. And like, if you've never experienced a Midwest thunderstorm, like you aren't living, if you've never experienced like going out in July in Nebraska and seeing thousands of fireflies just like bop around a country road, you're not living. And I think that like I got to appreciate nature in such a different way. It oftentimes looked like my, just very normal backyard or my grandma's farm where she just farms corn. Or it really looked like, these like Boy Scout backpacking trips where like, I went backpacking and went to the mountains for the first time. And that felt also very beautiful and very memorable. But I think I just learned to appreciate nature because nature was all around me. Like I didn't grow up in a big city. I really didn't see skyscrapers. The tallest building in Lincoln is like maybe 30 stories tall and it's like our capital. Yeah, just like there's so many trees in Nebraska and everywhere across the Midwest and just like there's a canopy of shade everywhere, which is very helpful for me as a very, pale-skinned person to enjoy the outdoors and not get super sunburned. But yeah, I think we really need to like reclaim that outdoors and know that outdoors is so important. Like we often think of it as just these big experiences, but in the everyday, it's, it's our neighborhood parks, it's our backyards, and that feels just as important and valuable. And that's the nature that I feel like I really relate to. Yeah, I was just like amazed as well at like nature, at like just how many worlds there are inside a world, and be like just digging dirt and there's a whole world underneath, or you look in the sky and there's a whole world above. And even just like fascination with change. Like you really see the seasons in Nebraska. Like you have 4 distinct seasons. And I realized like that's not something that everyone has. We have these seasons where you really truly do see the process of like life and death and rebirth. And you see that change and transition is such a natural part of nature. You know, it wasn't until Pattie really and people far smarter than myself who've really taught me, you know, things even as static as rocks. Like you look at a place like Yosemite and you're like, it just is what it is. But no, that place has been transforming every single day since the dawn of time, you know, and there's, you know, rocks currently falling into the valley as we speak, but also there's water running through it that's carving it. And, you know, when I see transition in nature, I can see transition in myself too. And I see fluidity in myself too. And I allow myself that space to transition. I think oftentimes we're so told that like we are who we are and that change is bad, or if you change, that's, you know, it's a bad thing, when really change is so beautiful. And like, the only constant is change. And I think what we don't know when we go on these, you know, outdoor experiences that we remember for our lifetime is that literally like our biochemistry is changing. Like this is very science and nature and nerdy, but like the environments that we are a part of become a part of us. And it's very Western to think of ourselves as separate from nature. And it's very, you know, the way that like indigenous people see nature is, you know, we are a part of nature, not apart from. Like nature is not a resource, it is a relative. And nature, again, is this force we can't understand and is constantly changing and transitioning. So, I mean, as cheesy as it sounds, like I would like look at these butterflies in like my backyard and I would see them go from caterpillar to cocoon to butterfly. And that blew my mind, like seeing these plants be completely dead in like the very like Russian winter of Nebraska with these winds ripping across the plains and then sprouting new growth and new life. Like I wish I would have seen that in myself and would have seen my ability to change and accepted that more. I think there's so much we can learn from nature as a leader when it comes to change and acceptance, because, you know, nature isn't trying to deny its change. It wants it more, you know?
You very clearly have found a muse in Mother Nature. And I relate to that on a really deep level. And I want to hear more about the creative process. I think a lot of people might look at the finished product and they see like where the inspiration came from. But I take a step back and I think to myself, like, good God, a lot of work went into that. So give us a sense of, you have an idea. When does that idea happen? And then what does it take to see that idea realized?
You are good at questions. I feel like I am my most inspired when I am like with other chosen family and like just completely bouncing ideas off other people. Like I actually am not that inspired when I'm just like by myself. I mean, potentially I'm the most inspired by myself, you know, outdoors. Shocker. Just seeing the beauty of Mother Nature. But I think I'm really like socially stimulated, and a lot of my ideas and a lot of drag, really. I mean, drag as an art form is rooted in activism and communication and getting a message across or telling a story in a creative way. And so I'm always trying to think about how can I educate through entertainment? And like, how can I look at something that might be a really hard or boring concept to understand or to grasp, and through entertainment, like make it more accessible or make it unique to a different audience or group, or make it beautiful and make it fun. I mean, it's been really interesting to see like my own journey of like being very outdoor and outdoor community focused to being, I think, way more like climate focused and climate motivated. In the climate movement, I think there's a big opportunity to take these messages and to take a lot of this doomsday energy and turn it into a more sustainable thing of joy and community and possibility and potential and collective action. And that really inspires me. But I think, yeah, I really get inspired by what other activists and educators and creatives are doing. I get really inspired by fashion. I get really inspired by just like wittiness and like creativity that makes you go like it just makes you grit your teeth and go like, that's so fucking smart. Like I love
wish
that.
I did that.
Yeah. I wish I did that, or just that is genius. You know, like that is so perfect. So I think I get really motivated by that. And I think the final thing I'll say about creativity, I am just fascinated by people that make good space. I think that is one of the most underrated art forms in the world, is making space where people feel comfortable and safe to be who they are. And so like every concert space I do, every show, every group hike I do, I want it to be space where people can just be themselves. And I think that drag lets people do that, because when they see a drag queen walking around being ridiculous in themselves, like, you know, they can match that energy by being themselves as well. But I think I really look at other artists and I look up to other people where just they can walk into a room and make the room feel at ease. And I think that is such an art form. And I can look at artists, you know, like Lady Gaga, for example, more than just her music or her art is just trying to make space for people that are otherwise like not really talked to or seen or heard. So I think there's a lot to learn in that. And I really want to make space that feels good. That feels like the real art form to me I'm after.
You know, talking about making people feel comfortable, you released 4 songs this year. One of your singles, Made It Through the Night. It opens with you connecting the dawn chorus of birds to the queer community. And it's a really powerful metaphor that you're using. The bird sings to let other birds know that it's made it through the night. And then you make the point that pride, that creativity, that celebration is the equivalent to that in the queer community. That's a powerful thought. When you say those words in that song, who are you singing that for?
I'm singing it for queer people, but I'm also just like singing it for anyone that's just, you know, overcome something in their life or overcome something that really surprised them that they made it through. It's interesting, this song, it's about how like pride is our bird song. It's about how being proud is misunderstood in this world. I think a lot of people look at pride or look at the gay community and they're like, that's excessive, that's ridiculous. Drag is making fun of women. Pride is wasteful and like it's full of just like glitter and like waste. And I'm like, first of all, have you ever seen an NFL stadium after a football game? Because let's talk about waste. So that's homophobic. But second of all, I'm like, we do what we do as queer people as a form of like joy protest. And we do it to have fun and to play with things that get so boxed in. Like drag isn't making fun of women, it's celebrating women. Drag is the celebration of femininity. And I know what people think because like I used to think that. I was conditioned to think that. Like when I grew up in Nebraska, I was totally conditioned to have internalized homophobia. And even when I was out, I was like, oh, well, you'll never see me at a pride. Or, you know, you'll never see me do drag. And anyone from that time in my life would be utterly in disbelief that I do what I do now because like I was such a hypocrite. I was the number one hater of all this stuff. And I didn't understand it because I wasn't a part of it. I just think that like pride is very misunderstood. The queer community is very misunderstood. And like why we do what we do is because we need spaces for joy and for community. When you ask who I'm singing for, I think I'm singing for myself in a way. To remind myself, I think I'm singing for queer people. I'm singing for women. And yeah, it's been really interesting to see, I mean, how many straight people really love the song. So it connects to straight people as well. And I love that.
After the break, Pattie and I talk about power of building bridges, facing fear, and finding yourself. Support for the Diaries comes from Kuat Racks. They've released the Ibex, an overlanding truck bed rack that handles substantial loads both on and off the grid, because we could all use some time off the grid, seriously. Constructed from lightweight yet durable aluminum, the black powder coat is made for all the nature you can throw at it. Available in different frame sizes to accommodate most truck models, the Ibex is engineered for adventure with versatile full and half-height configuration. It's an ecosystem of adventure possibilities. For more details, visit kuat.com. Kuat, because you will absolutely love this bed rack and go dope places. Hey everyone, it is that time of year. We need your shorts, your stories, because you power this show. We hear from so many of you that one day you're going to submit your short and send it to us at the Diaries. Guess what? That moment, it could be right now. So make it a New Year's goal or use it as an excuse to take a break from Uncle Joe at the holidays. You make this community, your voice is valued. You can find all the information you need at our website, dirtbagdiaries.com.
click on the Write Us tab where you can find instructions and the submission form. Pay attention to it. It helps the cause. Trust me. Link is in the show notes, so take a moment, click on it, consider it, and then get to work. You've got until January 19th to send us your short. Once again, it's dirtbagdiaries.com/write us. Thanks.
As I've gotten older, partially just like the life I built, I've had to become more a creature of habit. Like I have routine. Like 10 years ago, I did not have routine. And sometimes it drives me a little bit nuts. I try to alter them slightly sometimes, just be like, I don't even know what's blocked that way. I'll just ride my bike blocked that way or something as little as that. And the other trick I use is just like, I just try to find new details in those sort of routines and the pathways I build through my daily, weekly, monthly, yearly existence. And on my bike ride to work, I've found my favorite car in Seattle. It's not a car, it's a truck, and it's like a big truck, and it's lifted, and it's bright blue, and it's got like beautiful pink ribs.
Amazing.
In June, it would be towing like a pride flag, like streaming out behind the back of it.
Incredible.
And in Washington, we have like, you can get certain types of license plates, and it's got the ski license plate.
Love it.
And I think our whole family, we hope we see it in one of the ski parking lots because we will like probably go seek autographs because it's like our favorite car. And it's just this like awesome, wonderful expression. That was something I noticed. That's not a hard thing to notice. But following those same patterns, at some point I noticed that usually parked 1 or 2 cars away is a totally utilitarian commuter car. And on the back of that car is a single bumper sticker that says, "Be careful who you hate because it may be a person you love."
Totally.
And I don't know if those cars are in the same household, but they're at least right next to each other. And it seems that for people especially celebrating Pride, and I see it in your world too, where you are creating joy. And at the same point, sometimes you also end up getting sucked into the culture wars. Like you end up on Fox News or the conservative commentaries. They're building their sort of little fires of outrage, and they take whatever you've done last and they put that another log to keep that fire going. And there is this duality to it where it's both joy and then there's also pain. And I don't know if you experience it like that, but I've always thought when I ride past or drive past those 2 cars of being like, those 2 things are true and held together. And I'm curious whether it's that way for you.
I love that story so much. And I want to give props to you. And I would encourage like anyone listening to the power of noticing is so important in this world, and it's being lost because we're being fed everything nowadays. It's really hard to notice things in this world, especially like with the internet. And I mean, fuck if I know it, like my career was born on the internet, but I think that, it's really important to look nowadays, especially look when we're outdoors, look when we're doing even our daily things, because there are things to notice and lessons to learn everywhere. Whether that's a bumper sticker or, just a conversation with a friend rather than being sucked into our phone. What I know now is if you are stirring the pot, you're onto something. And I think a lot about what an elder in my life, Jose Gonzalez, says, which is, it's not time to burn it all down, but it is time to prescribe burn what isn't working to make room for new growth. Because I think what nature knows that we need to remember is that fire and setting some fire, some intentional fire is so needed. And I feel like I've really tried to do that in the outdoor space of being like, this here needs to be burned, because fire is turned into the villain when really it's not at all. It's such an important part of many ecosystems. In fact, some trees can't even open their pine cones without fire. And so I really think a lot about that whole tension of that me existing is so political. I feel like I try to remind myself of the reality of my identity as a queer person or my art form of drag are being used by people who want to separate and divide this world because they see queerness and my art form of drag as a threat because it can really unite things. And I think the most misunderstood part of drag is truly like how powerful and effective it is of bringing people together and creating joy and a space for people to feel celebrated. And so I know that they're doing that because they feel threatened. And I know that they're doing that because they think that like dividing our world can like lead to more success. The tale as old as time, especially politically, is if you can divide, you can conquer. I am so thankful that I was born in a place like Nebraska because I really learned that you can't just toss people to the curb. You know, you can't just hate your neighbor and be like, you know what, like F you, I'm never going to talk to you. I've had to learn from a very young age how to build bridges across difference. I think sometimes that's been at the sacrifice of my own mental health. So I'm trying really nowadays to not sacrifice that. But I think I really learned in like this kind of like tension of just how political my career has gotten in a way is that you can't fix stupid people. And there are many people in this world who conversation is not going to be productive with. Mm-hmm. So when I go back home to Nebraska now to like family functions, I'm no longer sitting at the adult table and trying to change their mind. Like I'm sitting at the kids' table. Simple as that. And I think that like I am trying to think about like where my time can be effective, where people actually want to listen, where people want to actually grow, and where I can listen to, you know, like I have actually learned a lot about acceptance in the past few years in the complete opposite way than I ever thought I'd learn about it. For so long in my life, I like, you know, wanted, you know, my family or my parents or, you know, people that, you know, would quote unquote hate me to accept me. And I think really acceptance is like me accepting them for who they are. I think it is rooted in pity, which is maybe not the healthiest thing, but I'm like, I pity that you have been taught hate, like, and you've been taught that this is the way to live your life. Like, I don't think we're born knowing hate. I think it's a very learned thing. And when people like want to throw hate in this world or think of people as like less than them, that's way more of a reflection of them than it is me. And that's way more of like an insecurity thing and also like an internalized hatred of themselves. I like wish the same freedom for them as like I feel. But it often looks like just like smiling and nodding, or it often looks like making a joke out of it. You know, when Candace Owens wants to make me like the thing she's like kicking around all Pride Month, like I will take her words and I will literally reclaim them in a drag number, which I will literally perform tomorrow in Seattle for 1,200 people at a sold out crowd and reclaim those words because it is honestly so hilarious what she says. And it's so funny. I mean, for example, she says in this like video she made about me that like drag queens are not out in nature, queer people are not out in nature. And then there's going to be a room full of like 1,200 people that are queer and that like have gone on backpacking trips. And I'm just like, it's so silly to me. So it's, there's a word in the queer community we use called camp. And camp is just like irony beyond end. It's just like so ironic. It's camp. And so for me, like I've learned to reclaim those words of hate as just camp. It's just like so ironic. Just so hilarious to me.
That's awesome. Part of my job through time has been telling stories or interviewing people or helping people even tell their own stories. And a lot of these people have done things that sometimes they're dangerous, sometimes they're courageous. They certainly took chances.
Yeah.
They've done it sometimes in the mountains, sometimes in their community, sometimes on activism levels. To me, when I talk with you and I look at you, Patagonia looks fearless. Is that true? Like, does Patagonia get to be fearless?
I don't. I am full of fear. I am a gay person. I deeply know fear. I'm deeply tapped into the reality of this world. But I think what I've learned about fear is that fear often keeps people from taking action, right? But what I deeply know is that inaction is an active choice. Like doing nothing is doing something. Like not doing the thing is a very active choice. And so that reality and that fear has often motivated me to take that action. Like if I feel fear around it, I know I need to do it. Because on the other side of that is growth. On the other side of that is learning something. And on the other side of that is something you're only going to know if you go. So yeah, fear is everywhere. Pattie might look fearless, but like I am always like, will this work? I feel like I try to show fear a lot in my work, actually. Show the fail as well. Like, I think the fail is just as funny and as real and as emotional as like the slay of it all, you know? Like, I'll show myself like swinging out from El Cap and coming back, but then like crashing on the wall and just being like the fail, you know? I'm always trying to show that duality. It's just a giant shit show behind the scenes. Yeah, I love the outdoors as a place to like challenge myself physically and mentally, and I think a lot about endurance as well, because I think that, the endurance that I've seen in like community organizers and like the climate space and the outdoor space is crazy. Yeah, there's endurance in climbing El Cap 3 times. Fuck you, Jordan Cannon. But I like also feel like I have to have a lot of endurance and stamina to like get in drag. As silly as that sounds, like get in drag like multiple times a week and like give to people multiple times a week and like not forget how important it is, like not forget like my why. So yeah, I don't know. Endurance athlete, Pattie, Gonia, here we are.
Yeah, you say that 3 times a week, getting up, performing, doing something that obviously on one level is for you, but that is a bigger thing. In the past, you've said that Pattie is a big gay rainbow unicorn.
Oh my God.
That's also a Trojan horse. That she's here to entertain, but you're going to learn something.
Yeah, oh my gosh. I love a Trojan horse. I think that most of the best art in this world is a Trojan horse. You watch a movie and you're like so entertained by that, but then you're like, oh my gosh, there's like a way bigger lesson to learn here. And I think that drag lets you do that too. It lets you build this world of fantasy and of something that's larger than life, only to like reveal humanity. I think a lot of times people think that I might be hiding behind drag, but I'm like, no, babe, when I'm in drag, that is the most me you've ever seen me. I am actually revealing myself to you. I am showing you who I am, and I can't hide when I'm in drag. Like, literally, people in a room can't stop looking at me. So for me, it's this really interesting performance art that like people can't look away from, and that I think really triggers something in people. And that feels like such a beautiful tool. And I also think, this is very deep, but I feel like your audience will get this because they're very heady people. But I feel like also me out of drag, like my masculine presenting self is a complete Trojan horse as well, because I can walk into a meeting with like marketing execs and speak enough corporate speak and enough straight passing speak, while also getting a deal done to support the queer community with like $200,000 of support to run a hiking tour. So queer people can get outside for free for a year and hike with us. So like, again, as a queer concept, like camouflage is so powerful, because it's like, you might think I'm camouflaging when I'm in drag, but like I'm in drag all the time. I'm in drag right now. 100% I'm in drag right now. Mm-hmm. Like life is drag. Like outdoor culture is totally drag. Like you go into a corporate office of any one of these brands and they're all fucking doing their drag. It is all drag, and it's all like knowing the words and sending the send and wearing this puffy coat, and then I'm a part of the in culture, and it's all drag. So I think for me, yeah, there's some Trojan horse there of being able to be this shapeshifter, and I think that's what queer people do so well, and I think that's really beautiful and sparkly.
That's awesome. I know this is so reductive.
No.
But
say it.
I can't help but think of superheroes. Like, I'm sure someone's asked this question this way, but it's just hearing you talk about that. Pattie has this origin story. It's like, it's so, someone could make a comic book
totally
out of your life.
Oh, we might just do it. You never know.
Yeah, it would be cool. It'd be a great one.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can see the beginning of the little kid with their hands in the dirt, like gaining special powers out of it.
Oh yeah.
But that reality is like, you look at those stories, those archetypes of the Peter Parker or the Clark Kent, and they house something glorious. Does it sometimes feel like you are a superhero and like someone's lit the Pattie light, in the sky, and there you are?
Every rainbow is just my bat signal. But yeah, it's also silly to me because it's like, you say superhero, I will equate this to like fame in a way, because I try to like really think about that critically. And I'm like, fame is a tool that you can use in different ways, again, to build or to destroy. I want to try to use it to build. And it's so silly because it's like, we all know that like Taylor Swift is just a human being, but yet we just like, we love like giving into it. Like we love being like, you know what? I am going to pay $400 to sit in a stadium with 80,000 other people and like watch this thing happen. But I like love that. And I think it's all just like silly and fun and ridiculous. I'm also like incredibly tiny in the scale of like fame or notoriety. Like if anything, I am like outdoor queer niche famous. Like it's ridiculous. But in that, like, I'm like, I just love that it's like kind of this secret way to relate to the world. Or if someone knows who I am, I can be like, what's up? Like, you are queer too. And like, this is beautiful. Or, you know, you don't have to be queer to know who I am, but you know, and like, that's funny and that's kind of just silly. And I love it. And I love it too, because well, people, when they like, you know, meet me out in the wild, might want to talk about me. I like love turning it back on them and like learning about their life and about like how they got into the outdoors or how they found Pattie or X, Y, or Z. And it's fun. It's like this little cheat sheet to life in a way for me that like makes the world feel smaller. And I really love that.
Through all this, through these creative endeavors, ultimately, is that how you found belonging and purpose, both in the outdoor world and the environmental, like the climate change world, creatively and socially?
Yeah. I think a lot about like belonging in this world and just, yeah, what a gift it is to give each other. And I just feel so grateful so many people have given it to me. And like, I just want to give that back to the world. I think that all I really am after and want to do is to like make good things with good people, make people's days. And I feel like Pattie is the most current iteration of what I'm doing, but also, and like, this is a fear thing, but I also know that Pattie is not going to be my forever. And so I am like trying to think about like, okay, like what's at the root of this? Like instead of thinking, you know, why do I love Pattie? Like what makes it important? Because I want to be able to like do that in many ways. And I think, you know, while photography might have been my chapter 1, Pattie is my chapter 2, and maybe it'll be a very long chapter 2. It's not going to be my forever. Like physically it cannot, you know, and I think you interview like pro athletes all the time and it's, you know, Pattie is my athletic career. I know I can't do this for forever. I think a lot of people, you know, their Saturn return, that like 25 to 35 is a big fucking chapter. So I want to think about like what's going to give me purpose. And I think for me, it's all rooted in how can I take who I am and what I'm good at and apply it to what I care about in this world. And that's going to be what I need to do. And right now, that very much feels like at the intersection of those things, of who I am, what I'm good at, what I want to do in the world. Pattie is a great thing at the intersection of all those things, but it's going to be different. But as long as I'm combining and not sacrificing who I am, as long as I'm not doing something I hate, you know, I want to do something that brings me joy and sustains me. As long as I'm doing things that I feel like can make an impact in this world, like I know I'm going to be good.
I would imagine that from all the panels you participate, all the events, all the hikes you've led, all the, like through all these things, you must get asked a fair amount. How does a person find their voice? Is that a question you end up fielding a lot?
Yeah, for me, it feels like not finding your voice, but just not dulling your shine. I think there's so many things in this world that especially teach women and queer people. And really, honestly, I feel like that teach white, straight men to dull their shine and to be disconnected from this world. Coming from Nebraska, so many people that I went to high school and college with that were these amazing, like, straight men that really the world has told them to like dull their shine and to just become alcoholics and become these isolated creatures and strong men who don't need relationships and don't need people. And so I think so much it's just remembering like what gifts you have to give this world, like remembering who you were when you were a kid, like being curious rather than judgmental. Yeah, looking at just like who you are and your skills as these like superpowers, like our diversity and our difference as like the key to it all rather than this enemy, you know? And I think that's like on society in a lot of ways to change, but it right now has to be on us as individuals to fight that shit and to be like, you know, the world wants me to become this gray, beige, amorphous, like fading to the back, dull thing. And it's like, no, like you being who you are is such an invitation to other people to be who they are. Again, what a free gift we can give each other. So I think that's how we find our voice and how we find our collective voice is by just not dulling our shine, by remembering who we are. And yeah, by like leaping from that trapeze bar and like maybe not reaching that other one, but knowing there is going to be like a trampoline to like bounce us back up. And that is our friendships and our community and that net that's got us. Maybe that is leaping and really for a long time not knowing where that trapeze bar is and then eventually holding on to it.
Thank you so much, Win, for joining us. Pattie's fall music tour kicks off in October, and it's going to be a blast. We'll put a link in the show notes for more details. Special shout out to all the folks who become members of the Diaries Plus. We're feeling the love, and you're powering the show. You're making it possible for everyone else to have the Diaries. So thank you. And if you haven't joined, now's your moment. Now's your moment where you get a chance to have a say in the future of the show. Our stories come from friends of friends, and from you, our community. If you have a compelling idea for a guest or story lead, please give us a shout. You can use the submission form on our website, dirtbagdiaries.com. Music today from Padelm and Brendan O'Connell. The tracks are courtesy of the artists or Track Club. Jacob Bain and Nis Cotto composed our theme song. You can find the links to the artists at our website, dirtbagdiaries.com. This episode was produced by me and edited by Skylar Perwins. Illustration by Walker Cahal. Becca Call is our executive producer. I'm Fitz Call, and you've been listening to the Dirtbag Diaries. Thanks for tuning in.